Hey, what's up, guys? This is Ty from the Tabletop Engineers, also known as Dust if you're following our campaign. I know I've been gone for a little while. Things have been kind of weird. I'm learning how to model a little better than I used to know, and things are coming slowly. But I still want to stay as active as I can as far as making sure content goes up or some sort of something goes up on the group page. So recently I posted a dungeon that I had created with help of my friends. It's the Wave Echo Cave. So if you're familiar with the Lost Mines of Phandalin, the Wave Echo Cave is a massive finale to the campaign, and my group happens to be there. So I decided to take it upon myself to create the Wave Echo Cave. When I was looking online, I looked up other creations that people had made of the Wave Echo Cave, and listen, this is a massive undertaking. So I'm not taking anything away from any of the creations that I found online. They are also a large amount of work, but at the same time, I didn't want the quality that I had been seeing for my group. I tried my best to produce extremely good miniatures, a really immersive terrain. I go as far as I can to create the best world that I can do, at least at my level of crafting. And the stuff I had been seeing, it just wasn't what I was looking for my group. So I took it upon myself to try to fully 3D print every last little bit of the cave, and with all the props and everything painted, and I just wanted to create something special for my group. My group does amazing when they play. They're reliable. They show up all the time. Our DM puts in a ton of extra time. Our players really go above and beyond to try to make it super fun for us. So I figure they deserve my best effort too, and so this is what we've put together for them. So this is going to be kind of a long video. I can't remember every last detail of what I did over the last almost 2 months creating the thing, but it'll be a good comprehensive breakdown. And if you decide to tackle something this crazy, make sure you got a little extra money in your bank account, because it was not cheap, and I didn't realize how expensive it was going to be when I was doing it. Also, if you are going to tackle something like this, chances are you're going to have to work out some stuff on your own, just like I did. So I may not remember every detail, but I'll do my best to give you sort of a breakdown. I don't have a tile count. I'm sure at some point I could have a tile count, but it's a lot, so I don't feel like doing it. Sorry, not sorry. But basically I would just print off runs of like 25 tiles at a time. It would take 2 or 3 days to print, and I would just hammer out 25, 25, 25, 25. All right, it looks like I have enough walls, so how about corners this time? And I'd print off 25, 25, 25. So I'm going to give you a quick look of the dungeon itself, and then I'll give you a quick look at my workshop, which is a disaster of a mess right now, but it'll give you an idea of why I thought I was capable of tackling something like this. I estimate about 1,500 plus hours of print time, about 100 plus hours of paint time, and that doesn't really include the miniatures. And then, I mean, all of the setup, the research, the hunting for tiles, the making props. Like, I had to do that's how I'm learning how to model, is by just getting out there and get my hands on a modeling program and trying. So there's a huge amount of investment, both time and money. So anyway, let's check it out, and then we'll go check out the workshop. We'll come back and we'll start talking about specifics on the tiles. All right, so a quick overview of what the map looks like. Now, if you're playing this campaign, I do not want to spoil any of the encounters for you, so we're not going to talk about any of the creatures or monsters in this cavern or in this cave. We're just going to go over a quick layout, and I'm just going to point at stuff, tell you what it is, and then we'll go take a look at a few other things. So here we've got our entrance cavern. There's a couple of rooms. Inside the cave, there's a set of mines. So we got some mines here. There is a spore cavern over in the corner, as well as a few, I don't know what these rooms are for yet, but a few more rooms. This goes off into a lake, I'm not sure, the ocean, something like that. This is where the waves are made for the Wave Echo Cave. Here's a smelting room they would bring iron from the mines in here and smelt it. This must be like a barracks, or not a barracks, but wherever all the miners would sleep. Here is a pool of water that technically runs through a tunnel. Down here, Now, I did have to make a couple of sacrifices to the map design or creative license to the map design to make this work. So the layer or the level heights are slightly off here, but that's, it's what I had to do to make this work. That goes into a little canal, which turns the water wheel, which actually turns, which I kind of like. That's totally useless. We'll never see it in game, but I still think it's awesome. So, and then that all runs off into nothingness, which is the end of the map. And then we have some sort of dwarven temple or something here, which has a little impromptu campsite. So that is all of it. It is quite large. I think this centerpiece is like a mess hall. This is where all the miners would probably eat, is my guess. And then it looks like a storeroom over here. So that's a basic lookout or overlook of the map. Now I have to have this map set up before my players even enter the room. And part of the problem with that is, how do you justify the players being able to see everything? So the main problem for me is it takes me hours to put this together. It's so large. There's hundreds of tiles. So it takes me a very, very long time in order to put it together, and I can't do that every week, and we can't do it while we're playing. We play for 4 or 5 hours, and you would spend an hour and a half just setting up the mines, and it's just not feasible for our dungeon master, nor is it feasible for our players. So how do we justify having the whole map on the table when the players walk in the room? Well, I made sure to make the DM aware that he is going to give us a map before we get there. So it's weird for a player to tell a DM to do something, but in this case, in order to justify it being on the field already, our party must find a map in some way, shape, or form. So we did that. Now, I did print a map of the Wave Echo Cave, and this is just for, this is the map our party found. I have a large format printer, so I can print maps kind of at will. I did not print this one of Faerun on the wall. I had a buddy of mine, his name is Keaton. He owns or runs Velrock Art on Patreon, and he does a lot of our minis. So if you get a chance, go check him out. So he was nice enough to print this for me, which is a huge map of Faerun. This is the area. We're just outside of Neverwinter, and I think this map is so big, so I think we're like right there. That's where the Wave Echo Cave is, somewhere right there. Anyway, so here's the map that we picked up. I kind of use this as a general guide for construction, although it doesn't really help me all that much as far as actually putting this thing together. But I did make sure our players had this map in their possession before we made it to the cave. That way, when they get there, they could have studied the map on the journey there and know exactly where everything is. For my personal use, I printed this, which if you're going in this campaign or you are Dungeon Master for this campaign, you should recognize this map. This is the map. And this is what I made sure to measure everything. Every tile is measured based on this map. The only concessions I had to make were this side of this, I don't know what to call. This is like a little tunnel. The mines that go through that side of the tunnel, they just aren't there. And I'm sure you can tell why. I literally have no more table space. So I didn't figure, as a player who doesn't know, I didn't figure there was anything important in these 3 little tunnels. Just my guess. And if there was something important, I'm relying on my dungeon master in order to find a way to get those important objects or items or encounters somewhere else in the map. So other than that, I was able to go from this cave all the way over and get the whole map in there. Also, the cave is 4 layers total height. So you have, let's say, a basement layer, a ground floor, a raised layer, and a level 2. So unfortunately, I could not do 4 layers deep, and all I could do was 3 layers deep. And that's part of the issue I struggled with here. But in this portion of the cavern, I couldn't go down through the table. It just wasn't possible. In order to make that work, I would have to have raised the entire map, every last piece of it, up 1 level, which also is a lot of filament to print risers for every last detail of this map. And it would have added another week of print time. And I decided to just kind of make an adjustment as I needed in order to make it work the way we needed. So anyway, so that's the map. This is what I used to lay everything out. And then I have one more map that I was able to find on Google. So I'm not even sure where this map came from. If you just Google Wave Echo Cave Map, you'll see it. But this map is a really detailed, you might have a hard time seeing it here. Let's see if I can. You can see it's got a lot of details to the props that would be in here. So here's all the boxes and barrels. Here's some bedrolls. There's a burnt out fire. Here's the spore cave. Here's a whole bunch of beds with a brazier. So this map is what I used to kind of give me a basis for how I was going to add the props in. So between these two maps, I was able to kind of deduce what was going on as far as the cave was concerned. Some of it may not be perfect, but it'll be pretty close, I think. Anyway, let's go take a quick look at my workshop and kind of see what I was working with as far as printers. And again, it's very messy, so I apologize, but that's how I like to work. So we'll see what kind of stuff I have set up as far as printers that allowed me to make this. All right, here it is. Might be a little loud in here. I literally have all hands on deck. Oh, I had a failure in one of my prints. That's not good. So I have a CR10. This is a G-Tech A30 that's working on some trees. Looks like one of my trees broke off, so I'm gonna have some spaghetti. But at least this one will finish with no issue. That's about a day print. I think I just lost a half a day's print. This tree's going really nice. Anyway, so this is a CR10 from Creality. This is a G-Tech A30. Which is just a very upgraded version of the CR10. When I pointed this and say it's a CR10, if you have one and you notice that it doesn't look anything like yours, that's because I'm a tinkerer and I made it into an all-in-one, so I did a little custom all-in-one conversion. This printer down here is a Kitty Tech 1. This is my old reliable. It works every time without fail, 100% of the time. I just hit go and it prints and I come back and it's done. All of these printers, not so much. So I also have this was my first printer, an Ender 3, which is also working on some trees. If you recognize these trees, these are from the Lost Adventure Kickstarter from Daniel Herrera. And then over here I have, this is my CR10 S5. Clean it up. This is my big boy. This is how I do all my big stuff. Also, you'll notice it doesn't look like a CR10. I've done an all-in-one conversion on this as well as a touchscreen. So this is just kind of nice to have to change filament, do stuff like that. I always keep stats up on screen so I can see my stats and then I can control it from there. And then they are all equipped with Octoprint. This one I have a print failure, which is now printing spaghetti. After 24 hours, you'll notice that I am not freaking out about it because when you have this many printers, it's just how it goes. And whatever, what can you do? So I'll restart these trees and just watch this thing print spaghetti and for a little bit. But this is my ANET A8. Bought this sucker for $100. It ran terribly. I probably spent another $100 getting it to run terribly. So what can you do? I also have two Anycubic Photons. This is where I print all my minis. I also tend to print, oops, let me throw chairs around. I tend to print little props. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Nope, it doesn't want to focus. So this is like a little chair that I put together. So I print most of my props there on those ones. Now for this particular project, I talked to a buddy of mine and he allowed me to borrow his Ender 3 Pro as well, but I've since returned that. I've returned that printer. This computer is specifically dedicated for 3D printing, and so it stays in a 3D printing room and it's all a mess. For the resin cleanup, I use a 2-liter isopropyl bath, and then when I finish in that bath, I clean them up in a very small bath just to remove as much resin as I can. So that's pretty much it for the workshop as far as keeping things going. I tend to print things 24 hours a day. I have to get the QD Tech running again, and then I got to figure out if this is repairable. Who knows? Anyway, that's the workshop. Let's go take a look at some details on the map. All right, we're back at the dungeon here. I figure we'll just go over each terrain piece and figure out what I use to make them and kind of how I put it together. These cavern tiles, so this one, the center one, and the spore cave over there, these were all made with Printable Scenery's Dungeon Grotto, or I'm sorry, Goblin Grotto. You have to buy the floors and the walls separately. And I used 3D Builder, Microsoft 3D Builder, in order to lay out the pattern. Now this was printed all in a single print, so it's just one piece that I laid out. Now I know not everybody has a CR10S5, so you can slice this up however you want, and you can kind of make it whatever you need it to be for your printer. But basically I laid the floors out in the program, and I just sort of mashed them together. So the good thing about these floors is they're very rocky and chaotic, and so when the stones overlap each other, they actually look as if they're meant to be that way. So this is 5 or 6 different floor tiles all smashed together, overlapping each other, and then the same with the walls. So because the way the walls are constructed, they just sort of mesh into each other, and you can't really tell the difference between the files. So yeah, I just brought them into the program, squished them all together, joined them so they became one mesh, and then exported that one mesh as an STL and brought that STL over to the printer. I do have a couple of different props over here. This is a Printable Scenery campfire, Printable Scenery bedroll and equipment. And then I apologize, I actually don't know what some of these are. Where I got them from. There are so many barrels and crates to find online that I just can't remember which ones I used. So if they were yours, I apologize. You deserve all the credit in the world. I just can't remember to give it to you, but I love you nonetheless. So if somebody does know and they want to say, oh yeah, those are from X, Y, and Z, please put them in the comments. They do deserve credit because they did put in work in order to sculpt these for me to use. Same applies for all of it. If I forget one, please don't hesitate to make sure that you shout them out in comments that I missed them, but they deserve the recognition for sure. So then the next piece we'll go on to, these are all Fat Dragon Games tiles. This is their basic dungeon set. I do have torches in the dungeon set, and those torches must be purchased separately from Fat Dragon Games. I think it's only like $2 or $3 to get the torch tile. It's like 10 or 15 to get the set. The beds, I believe I got on Thingiverse. Same situation. I actually made these beds 6 months ago, and they're props that I've had sitting around, so unfortunately I do not remember the creator of them. So if you do know, go ahead and post it in the comments. Same with the tables. I think it's Cast and Play. I cannot remember who made the tables. I want to say it's Cast and Play, but I could be wrong. The doors come with the Fat Dragon Game set. The doors are actually some of the best engineered doors that I've seen so far. It requires no tools, no glue, and they open and close. And you can print them on any printer, and they have no overhangs. So very, very well conceived as far as the doors. These are half tile sets. I prefer to use a half tile when the corridors are very thin. It makes it easier to move the minis around. I can actually drop a mini into the corridor. The mini fits, and I can still reach in and pick it up without having to squish my fingers between two walls. So you have to buy those separate from Fat Dragon Games. I think they're $9 or $10. This particular piece was kit bashed from the Dungeon Grotto, or the Goblin Grotto, I keep saying that, from the Goblin Grotto from Printable Scenery, but I have to kit bash in the Dragon Lock tile so that I can merge the tile system directly into the piece. So I merged it here, I merged it here, and I merged it here. This piece and this piece are one. Even though I painted them separately, they go together. So it's really hard to do. You have to create a grid when you do the 3D builder. So you just take what I did is I took a flat floor from the tile set. I imported it into the 3D builder. I multiplied it until it was a full grid of tiles. And then I had to count the spaces on the grids, place these particular pieces where I wanted them so that I knew they would match. And then I filled in between. Next, we'll look at the spore cave here. I found all sorts of different mushrooms and spores, or mushrooms, so to speak. So there's one type. This one actually has, I've got a poster tacked down, but this one has rocks built in. These ones don't have rocks built in. And then this one here was a different model as well. I just went on Thingiverse. I looked up mushrooms. You'll have to forgive me again. I don't remember who made them, but if you know, please shout it out. But because I grabbed a bunch, I was just doing my best to get the project moving. So I just grabbed as many mushrooms as I could find. We painted them all the same. And I included, this is going to be hard to do one-handed, so bear with me here. So I added lights to the system. The lights were very easy. I ran the lights in parallel all the way around. Here you can kind of see some of my lighting. I got very little LEDs that were pre-soldered for me on Amazon. And what we did is we just painted the wires gray so they match the grotto, and for the most part you can't even tell they're there unless you're really looking for them. So those turned out really well. I'm very, very happy with how that turned out. We also bring fog into it. So I have this device called a fog monster. If you Google fog monster, you'll find it. I think they're called Game Effects is the company that makes it. I'll be honest, it works exactly as advertised, although I would not recommend purchasing one, which sucks because I love the fact that a company went out of their way to manufacture a gaming effect, a practical gaming effect, which you guys obviously know I love. The main problem that I struggle with is the fact that it's a huge box sitting on your table. Now they do make a house for it that looks like a cathedral or a tower, which is great if your landscape requires a tower, but it would look really weird to just have a big gray tower standing over the back of this. So that's not their fault. It's the nature of the beast. In order to make what they've made in here, it's got to be a tower. It's got to be a big old chunky thing. The second part is good and bad. The good is that it doesn't cost you any money every time you use it. The bad is that it uses water in order to make its fog. The problem with using water to make your fog is that once the fog hits the bottom and then condenses, it then becomes water. So my terrain pieces will fill with a pool of water by the time our session is over. Now, in retrospect, you look at it, you go, wait, there's lights in there and wiring and stuff, and the water's bad. It's actually not a problem. So the amounts of water would have to bridge the LEDs, but the LEDs are sealed, and the battery's all the way over here and doesn't get as much water on it. So not a major issue. It creates a really cool effect. So if you like the effect, please go give them some love. But I would not recommend the Fog Monster. That being said, they are coming up with some really amazing designs for different fog and smoke effects. They have one that makes steam, which is even better than the fog. And then they're coming out with a Fog Monster 2, which I think is a Kickstarter currently right now, that tries to alleviate some of the liquid issues and the moisture issues that this particular one is creating. So if you get a chance, check that out. It's called a Fog Monster. Otherwise, wait for their Kickstarter to get the Fog Monster 2. It sounds way better than this one. They've produced more fog with the same amount of work, and it sounds like they've got a condensation chamber or something like that coming, which should be fantastic to see. So that's the Spore Cave. I grabbed some of these stalagmite little terrain pieces on Thingiverse. Unfortunately, I don't remember who made them, as it was well over 2 months ago when I found them. But I did print them in all different sizes and shapes, and that helped me drop little terrain pieces where I needed them on top of a tile system so that I didn't have to create custom tiles. Keaton Velrock Keaton from Velrock Art made these at my request. They are little dead skeletons. Oh, I forgot to get there we go. They're little dead skeletons. He's got a whole bunch of different ones that he made for me. They are exactly what I was looking for, and I could find them nowhere else. There's plenty of skeletons out there, but they are all undead, and I needed dead. So I'm not sure if he's going to release them or how he's going to release them. I will beg him to hand them out to the community. He does have a Patreon. Check out Velrock Art on Patreon. He also posts stuff like this on his Thingiverse profile. So just look up Velrock on Thingiverse and you'll find stuff like this. And hopefully he will release these for you guys to use in the future. Let's see what else we got here. This was from the Cragmaw Castle that I built, but they are just little props that we put in there. Technically, if we're going to be technical about it, there would be no food on these tables, but sometimes I have to take creative license for the art of it more than the realism of it. The food would be all rotted and gross, and there wouldn't be much there. But unless somebody moved in that I don't know about, because I haven't played this room yet. So, but I just put it in there because I thought the props look really good. I just wanted the place to look great. So, a few more skeletons. I think I've got some skull piles here. So I actually I remixed a single skull that I found online and turned these into skull piles. So you can look up Ninja Bear on Thingiverse and you'll find the skull piles that you can print. We also have an alchemist table. I think I downloaded this from Thingiverse as well. Can't remember exactly, but hopefully that's correct. And painted this up. My DM said that I needed like an alchemy table and a scale, and it just so happens that I found an alchemy table with a scale. So if you look up alchemy table on Thingiverse, you will find it. Let's take a look next. Oh, we haven't talked about the tiles. So these tiles are from Fat Dragon Games also. They're all Dragon Lock. They are the cavern set. So you just want the cavern set for those. I didn't need very many variants of the cavern set at all other than the water, which we'll get to. Let's see what else we got here. Okay. This is a forge from EC3D, I believe it is. So you can look up a Dwarven Forge set from EC3D. Now you can't get this forge to look like this without a copious amount of work, because the back of his forge is flat. It is pure flat. So I had to go in and custom sculpt the brick and the little wood grain, and I had to recreate the forge top in order to have a back to it. So you're gonna have to work on them sculpting chops in order to make that happen, but it's definitely possible. I am a very beginner sculptor / kit basher, so if I can do it, you probably can too with a little effort. I found the water wheel on Thingiverse. I also had to do quite a bit of work to get this water wheel to work. Half of it is flat. You'll notice that I split it in half and glued it together so that I had details on both sides of it. So you can see it's got the little steel rivets and all that stuff. I used a piece of acrylic for the shaft, and I just drilled a hole into the forge all the way in order to create room for that shaft. Now I didn't glue the shaft in. I could actually take the shaft apart. I could take this out and use that forge later. It'll just have a teeny hole in it. And then I modeled a couple of caps for the end of the acrylic, which it's nothing. You can do that in Tinkercad in 3 or 4 minutes. These wheelbarrows are from Thingiverse, as well as the little iron ingots. This was from a forge set that I found probably a year ago, so unfortunately I don't remember where they came from. You can find the pickaxe and shovels on Thingiverse as well. I just typed in pickaxe and shovel and picked ones out. Excuse me. I printed them on the resin printer and then painted them just to have extras out here. I got a little creative with this. I wanted to have like a tipped over wheelbarrow, so I glued it together to appear tipped over. Excuse me, got something in my throat. Next, I want to talk about these braziers. Now, I really like these braziers. I worked with the person who created them. I hate to say, but I've forgotten his name. I am friends with him on Facebook, and I have talked with him a number of times, but it escapes me at the moment. So I apologize, man. I still love you. Can't wait to see what else you're coming up with. But he created full sets of glowing tiles for Dragon Locks. So if you are looking for any wall torches, braziers, anything like that, all you have to do is go to the RPG drive-through, I think is where Fat Dragon Games releases their stuff, and look up a few. You will 100% find his stuff. If I can remember, I will put it in the comments. Otherwise, somebody else will correct me for sure. Now, in this case, he created these brazier tiles. And after I printed a number of them, I came to realize a few things that could be improved upon. So he and I got together and sat down for an evening or two and worked out some corrections. So when he first designed them, he designed them as one full tile. And when you were ready, you would click the tile into the dungeon master would, and you would already have a battery in the tile. The problem is I can't just clip this into a dungeon. The dungeon had to be made a week in advance because it takes me hours upon hours to build. And there's no way I could put a battery in there and have it last a week. So we talked about slicing the brazier off the tile and leaving a hole in the tile. And this would allow room for the battery to go in. And this would let me swap in batteries whenever we wanted. So he was nice enough to sit down with me over an evening, and we kind of hammered out making a new brazier with a tile, and he sliced the new holes and sliced the braziers off, and that worked out fantastic. Well, originally the way it was designed is that you would print this all as one piece, and it would have a single flame on the top. You would print it clear, and then you would try to paint over the rest of it. Well, that makes it very hard on the painter to try to get a little brush in there without touching the flames or anything like that. And so I managed to slice off the flames out of the bowl of the brazier and print my own flame. Now I'm really proud of this because this was my very first sculpt from scratch, which were these little flames, and they actually turned out to look like flames in my opinion. So the good part about this is because the flames and the brazier are separate, you could paint the brazier without having to worry about accidentally going outside the line, so to speak. And then you didn't have to paint the flame at all because you just put an LED inside of it that flickers. So this was a little collaboration between he and I, and they turned out fantastic. I'm so happy with them. Later on, I found out that this one here needed to be one without a flame, so I just modified it to have no flame. And then there's another one that drops in there that has a special flame that I won't give away in case you haven't played it. Let's see. Next, we want to talk about. Let's talk about the water tiles. Now, this is something I'm really, really proud of. So my girlfriend is a fantastic painter. She does most of the minis that we do, and I handle a good portion of the terrain pieces. So these are water tiles. They're wavy, wet cavern tiles from Fat Dragon Games, as well as another person who creates them on RPG Drive-Thru. He creates the creeks that you see, like the little, all of that. So just look up wet caverns on RPG Drive-Thru, and you'll find them. So the deal was I had to come up with a paint scheme that made it seem dynamic and that would sort of run into each other. So we decided that a light green around the outside edge that ran into the same portion of each tile, at the edge of where the stones were. That faded into a lighter blue. That faded into a darker blue. So she went through and did all of the blending of the paints when she did that. And then we printed it, which you might be able to see some of this texture. You can still see some of the 3D print lines. And to be honest, they didn't turn out great. I print everything at a 0.3 layer height, and they didn't turn out, like, the water doesn't look like water, and we wanted to come up with a way to make it a little smoother, a little more water-like. And so what we did is we covered each tile in a thick layer of Mod Podge, a glossy Mod Podge. And then I took a straw and I would blow into the Mod Podge to kind of blow it around in different textures. And this is what it came up with. So once that cured, it became very glossy, and it gave us a really nice texture over the top that definitely makes it look like, I mean, that looks like water, you know? So that turned out great. The stairs are part of the cavern set. I just had to, they're usually 1 square wide, so I just widened them to 2 squares so that they fit in there. They fit in there really nice. I use a riser set from Fat Dragon Games. These risers are very difficult to work with. So I found out that if I take, let's see if I can find one here. Okay, so the way these work is you've got the 4 little holes, like Lego holes at the top, and the gaps in between those little circles goes into the square on the bottom of the tiles. But sometimes your first layer, when you print the tile, is actually fatter than these little gaps will allow. So I figured out that if I take a torch, I could heat those up and melt the plastic, and it would thin itself out. And when it cooled, it would fit perfectly with the risers. So it was a little extra work and figuring out to make it happen. And some tiles just didn't fit, and I had to swap with a different tile in order to make it work. But these tile risers worked out really, really well. I wish my there we go. Jeez, sorry about the focus, guys. So these worked out fantastically. I'm very happy with them. Let's see, this huge rock is actually part of the cave. I wish I had the time to mold this rock into the water so that it felt more like a piece of the terrain. But at the same time, the Mod Podge just held onto it. But at the same time, this is now a droppable piece I can drop anywhere. So I decided to leave it that way. But basically it was a multiple rocks that I sort of shaped in Cura and then squished into each other in Cura and printed, and now it's the correct shape for the dungeon, for the cave. Let's talk about one last section here. This last section is a dwarven temple. Now, as far as the map itself, what it calls for, this is not exactly correct. It's supposed to be a dwarf with a hammer sitting on a throne, and he's supposed to have, I think, ruby eyes or some sort of gemstones in his eyes. And there's supposed to be 6 pillars in the room. So Fat Dragon Games came out with the Mountain King set, and this turned out to be super close to perfect. So I went ahead and printed that. These also come from the Dragon King set, as well as the tiles on the floor, which is just a little extra thing that I threw in to give the room a little different look, just to make it a little more temple-like. You'll notice I painted it slightly different. I put a whiter paint over the top. I wanted to give the impression of maybe dirty marble or something like that. So that was the set, which I think is really cool. The bookshelves here are from Printable Scenery. You can get them with the Scriptorium, I believe. The Scriptorium is a very large building, and if you buy the whole thing just for the bookshelves, you're probably throwing your money away, but that's where I got them from. I think that's it as far as... Oh, I almost missed one of the most important parts. The mines, these were created by Devin Jones as part of his OpenForge system. And all I did was create them with no base. And then I managed to find... Actually, Devin has a link somewhere for adapters. So this is a Dragon Lock tile that I glued onto the top of this mine. Now, part of his system, you cannot... you cannot print certain pieces. So he created these tiles here, and he created the corner tiles. I'm trying to find a basic corner tile. So he created these corner tiles. He created the single inside corner, and then he also created a single outside corner. Unfortunately, I was not able to use those particular tiles the way I wanted to. So this tile here I created using his designs. This tile here is a half. It's a half, like a U shape. I created that with his designs. And then also, I really like the little cross beams that he created. But he only created cross beams that worked on a 2x1. And I needed cross beams to work on a corner, so I had to create the corner tiles. And I also wanted cross beams to work on the U's, so I had to create the U's myself. Now I'll talk to Devin. I believe I should be able to release those files, or I can give them to him to release if he would like to, in order to create just a more cohesive or a more cohesive mindset. He also then created mine floors. These floors are just the dungeon tile floors from Fat Dragon games, but he created mine floors with cart rails and carts and all of that, and they are fantastic. Unfortunately, I had already printed all of this by the time he released them, so I wasn't going to go back at that point. You should definitely check those out, especially if you're going into any sort of mine. These are amazing. So I'll talk with him when I get a chance, and we will see if I can release the parts that I made for them, or see if he wants to release them with the pack. So I'm pretty sure that's it, you guys. There's not much else here. We talk about painting, although there's plenty of videos out there painting. I'll give you a super quick rundown of the colors I did, and really quick and dirty, like how I did it. I used a slate gray, a dark gray, and then I went through and sort of wet brushed on brown, and then I dry brushed on a light gray, and then we put in little dabs of green for mold over the top of the light gray. Excuse me. On these tiles, we did also a dark gray. We wet brushed like a really, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like dry brushing, but with a much wetter brush. So it's a little more sloppy. A light gray over the top of these, and then on the lightest part of these tiles, I used like a buttermilk. I don't know if you've ever been to caverns like in real life, but caverns are actually white. They're not gray, they're not dark, other than there's no light. But the caverns themselves are actually very white. So I wanted to bring that whiteness into it. So I got like they're white, kind of white yellow, like eggshell, little more yellow than eggshell. So I brought this buttermilk color into those. The mines I just did black. Everything was printed in black PLA, so I just did one coat of like a brown, like a medium brown, and then dark gray, light dry brush, and then a light brown dry brush over the top. And we already talked about how to do the water tiles, so those are easy. And then, these are pretty cool. So this is a silver metallic, like a kind of a dry brush of dark, like maybe a black or a dark gray. And then it's very hard to tell on camera, but there's a little hint of sort of like a bronze metallic over the top for rust. They rusted out pretty cool. So anyway, and then these are a dark paint, a light dry brush, and then an almost white dry brush over that in order to get the really light effect. So but that's the Wave Echo Cave, you guys. I hope that was enough information for you. I hope that if you ever decide to create this for yourself, that you post pictures and get all the love that you guys have shown me for yourself, because I eat it up. I'm so proud. I'm so happy that you guys like it. I am working with friends right now to figure out how to stream. And we are going to do our best to come up with a stream. I can almost guarantee the stream won't be live by the time we finish this cavern, though. So I want to do it right. I don't do things half-assed, as you can see. So it's not just going to be a webcam and a bunch of friends in a room. We're going to do our best to come up with something truly unique and special when it does the stream. So anyway, love you guys. I hope you love the dungeon. I can tell you in our first gameplay so far, it is amazing. We've had so much fun, and I hope we still get another 4 or 5 sessions out of this place at least. I hope we will. Anyway, thank you so much, guys, for watching. Have a great day, and see you at the table.